people, it's me, Anja. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is my 30th recent leads video, and honestly, I'm kind of surprised that we're only at 30 recent leads, but that's just how it be. Anyway, the first book on this list is called Patron, Saints of Nothing, written by Ribay. I think that's how you say it. I don't know. I've never actually heard anybody pronounce it, so I probably completely butchered it. But anyway, this is a YA contemporary book, and I ended up rating it 3.5 stars, and it follows a young Filipino-American teenager and the risks that he takes to uncover the mystery behind his cousin's murder. And to do that, he travels to the Philippines, and he's never been there before, and I really like this story. At first, I wanted it to remind me of Darius the Great Is Not Okay, and it really didn't do that for me, but I enjoyed the accurate portrayal and representation of the Philippines, because I feel like sometimes, especially in Western culture, we romanticize other countries. We romanticize them and we think that they're so exotic or whatever, when they're really I mean, yes they are, but sometimes I just feel like Western people romanticize other countries, especially developing third world countries and stuff. And there's a quote from this book that I cannot accurately quote from, because I don't remember exactly what it says, but basically it says that in order to accept the good things about a country, we should also accept the bad things about the country too. I don't know if that makes any sense. If you've read the book, maybe you know the quote that I'm trying to refer to but failed at. But anyway, I ended up rating this book 3.5 stars, and yeah. The next book on this list is called Deck of Omens, written by Kristen, Lynn, Herman. If you weren't here for my last recent leads video, this book is the sequel to the Devouring, which I read in my last recent leads video. This book was so good. Reading the Deck of Omens truly had the same energy as reading Whale of Dreams after reading the Divinals, because this book raised the stakes. This author raised the stakes so much in this book that it totally exceeded my very low expectation. If you didn't know, I rated the Devouring 3.5 stars, but I rated this book 4 stars. It was so good. This author, she developed the characters so well that she introduced in the first book. The romance was great. The plot twists were great, and genuinely took me by surprise. The plot was so intriguing, and I really just love this cast of characters. They're so great. May is probably my favorite character. She's just so wonderful, and I love the role that she had to play in this story, because I was kind of afraid that she wouldn't become as important in this story just because everybody else has a romantic subplot or something and she doesn't. So that was really nice. I really like her, and she is so great. And I will be talking about this duology again in my favorite underrated duologies video, which I haven't filmed yet, but I probably will have already filmed by the time that you watch this video. The next book on my list is called Court of Lions, written by Somaiya Daud, or is it Daud? I don't know. This is a YA fantasy, and this is also a sequel. It is the sequel to Mirage, which I read 2 years ago or something. I really enjoyed this sequel. It's kind of a romantic fantasy, and it has a lot of meticulous detail, which is why I really liked the first one. So this one was a great conclusive ending. It was just so good. I really enjoyed it. I love these characters. I loved there were 2 romantic relationships in this book. One of them was a continuation from the first one. That was great. There was a new sapphic relationship in this one, which was solid. We love sapphics in this household. It was just so good. And even aside from the romance, there was some political stuff going on, which was so solid, and the world building was also really good. More people should talk about this duology because it is so good, and I love it so much. And yeah, you guys should read it too. The next book on this list is called Lobizona. This is a YA fantasy, and it follows Manuela, and she's an undocumented immigrant. And after her mother is arrested by ICE and her surrogate grandmother is attacked, and I forgot, and lifelong lies are exposed. I feel like I'm doing a terrible job explaining the synopsis of this book, but that's because it's so convoluted that I feel like I can't really summarize it in 2 sentences. Anyway, I'm getting off the subject. So after all that ish happens, she sets out to investigate her past, and in turn, she discovers a world within our world. So this is like a portal fantasy, I think, more specifically, than just a regular fantasy. Anyway, this book was really, really good. I ended up rating it 4 stars. Everybody was hyping up this book prior to its release date because it talks about undocumented immigrants and werewolves. And I was a little bit skeptical because werewolves just remind me of like the 2012, 2013, 2014 Wattpad era. And I think that werewolves is like one of those fantastical creatures like vampires that belong only in fan fiction and not actually in real books. So I was very skeptical. Because of that, I had really low expectations, and this story definitely exceeded those expectations because this story was so good. I loved the world building, I loved the characters, I loved the plot twists. The romance, I think, was not as well developed as the rest of the stuff, so that's why I can't really give this book 5 stars. I also really like the Argentini culture. Like, that was really, really well done. I don't think I've read a book with South American culture in it in a very, very long time. So that was like nice and refreshing. We all know this. I love reading cultural fantasy that doesn't just have like Western culture in it. So that was really fun and nice and surprising and refreshing. And this book truly deserves all of its hype, and I'm very excited to see what will happen next. The next book is called Set Fire to the Gods. This book is also YA fantasy, and I also rated it 4 stars. And it was really, really good, and it's set in a world with elemental magic and gladiators, so that was really nice. I really like the world building of the story. It follows 2 characters, Ash and Maddock, who are on opposite sides of this world because one of them works for the fire elemental god and the other one works like for the earth elemental god. So their characters are not exactly supposed to become friends or allies or really be anything other than like, I'm beating you, you're fighting me, we're fighting each other because our gods tell us to. You know, they're not really supposed to like think of each other as anything else other than opponents. So that's fun. I really, really like this book. If you didn't know, I said that earlier already because it was just so good. The world building was truly unique, which is something that I don't say often. I feel like with fantasy, because sometimes YA fantasy sounds all the same, but in this story, it wasn't. It was unique. I liked it. It was good. Aside from the world building and the setting, which apparently I can't stop talking about, I also liked the plot. It had an intriguing plot, it had well-developed characters, and honestly, I'm really excited to see what will happen next, because this is a duology, which means that everything will wrap up in the second book. And honestly, I don't know how these authors are going to do it, but I trust that they can. The next book on this list is called The Girl and the Ghost, written by Hanna Alkaf. This is a middle grade contemporary. It's not a contemporary. A middle grade fantasy, and it follows Somaiya. I think that's how you say her name. I don't know. Anyway, after her witch grandmother gives her a ghostly companion, Somaiya has a fun time with her new best friend until she discovers that her new ghost best friend has a dark side. So I enjoyed this book. It had a nice, intriguing plot. In the beginning, the friendship between the girl and the ghost was wholesome and it was whimsical, and I really liked Hanna's writing. I've already read The Weight of Our Sky by this author, so I've already been introduced to her writing, but I believe that this is her fantasy debut, and honestly, it did not read as a fantasy debut. But anyway, the story was good. It was solid. It wasn't great or absolutely amazing. It did not live up to the expectations that The Weight of Old Sky left, but it was good. I honestly didn't really enjoy the darker tone that it took halfway through. I wasn't really expecting it, and honestly I wasn't really here for it. Maybe it's just me, but I expect middle-grade fantasies to be a little bit more lighthearted, and that's what I was hoping that this book would be, but it just wasn't, and that's just not for me. So there's that. The last book on this list is called A Song of Wraiths and Ruin, written by Roseanne and Brown. And if you've heard of this book, you're probably thinking that I saved the best for last, and I'm here to tell you that I didn't. I liked this book. I didn't love it. I think that it's overrated. For those who don't know, this is a YA fantasy West African inspired mythology book, and it follows two characters, a grieving clown princess and a desperate refugee, who find themselves on a collision course to murder each other despite their growing attraction to each other. So that's a fun premise. I didn't like this book as much as the general consensus, just because I felt like it was your typical YA fantasy. Like, it had an action-packed, fast-paced plot. I did not enjoy the insta-love. I hate insta-love. It's probably one of my least favorite tropes. So having it in this story was not a good move. So am I going to continue the series? No, I'm not going to continue the series. Do I think this book is worth its hype? Absolutely not. Did I wonder after finishing it if people hyped this book up so much because it's diverse? Yes I did. So anyway, this book was not great. It's not amazing. It's just good, So I gave it 3 stars. So in conclusion, the best books on this list were Lobizona, Court of Lions, and Set Fire to the Gods, in that order. The worst books on this list were definitely A Song of Wraiths and Ruin. Yep, that's the one that I didn't like the most. So, yay, I guess? I don't know. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Comment down below your thoughts on any of these books. Don't take my personal opinions personally. If I just trashed your favorite book, it's okay. We all have different opinions, and you don't need to trash somebody else for disliking your favorite book. This isn't book Twitter, it's booktube, okay? Anyway, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you next time. Bye!